tried to pull on the line, and I knew instantly that I'd made the wrong call. The fish was not running to open water, it was running straight for the reef.
Bad shot! Bad shot! Bad shot! I think he's stuck. I know how this ends. Might sound strange.
But for now, let's go back to 4 a.m. because we had an absolutely epic encounter to start the day off. And should we mention the sailboat thing?
Not yet. You're gonna have to watch and see.
Okay, we'll make them wait to the end of the video. But first, Catalina.
If you're new here, hi. We're Grace and Luka, the Dolmans. We are underwater filmmakers and spearos, which basically means we hold our breath, dive over 100 feet to the bottom of the ocean to catch dinner, and film everything. We want to live in a way that's simple, intentional, and free. It's not just about travel, it's about self-sufficiency. Catching our own food, generating our own power, and living with only what we truly need. In the most remote corners of the world, we're building a life centered around exploration, resilience, and connection. To the ocean, to each other, and to a slower, more honest way of living.
We left San Diego at 4 a.m. to drive 2 hours north to LA, where we would take a boat in less than ideal conditions to cross 1 hour to Catalina Island.
The crew for this trip was myself, Luka, Luke, and Chase. We all live for these early morning runs. You have to sacrifice a little something to get a chance at these fish. The gear's already packed from the night before. Everyone's checked the forecast way too many times, and the ride to the boat ramp is completely silent. Not because we're all tired, but because we're already mentally in the water.
So, the conditions. It was less than ideal, but definitely 100% manageable. We had kind of 3 swells working against us. We had a primary out of the northwest, we had a secondary coming off, rebounding from LA, heading towards Catalina, and we had a tertiary from a low that hit us the day before. But having said all that, still completely manageable, but it was definitely a confused sea state and a bit of a rough ride to the spot.
The conditions weren't really lining up, but we knew we had to try and make it happen.
We always go. It's a bit of a character flaw.
It's definitely a character flaw, but it's also why we have footage.
So we rounded the corner and we made it to our first spot. It was a shallow little kelp bed in about 35 feet of water. Are we good?
Yeah, go for
it. Spot number 1, gentlemen. Felt that.
The first drop of the day for me is always an exploratory dive. I'm trying to get used to my new environment. In this poor visibility, I always like to dive the entire water column first, to get a better understanding of the spot we're diving. I take a peak inhalation and fill all quadrants of my lungs. Then do a nice controlled duck dive and begin my descent. From the bottom, I feel like I have a better point of view getting to look up at the water column instead of down, all while conserving precious oxygen, allowing me to stay down longer, spending more time in what we call the strike zone. Nothing came in on this dive, but I swear every turn I took, I thought I was going to see a giant sea bass.
Grace and I are still relatively new to this whole white sea bass hunting thing. One of my main philosophies is always dive to the bottom, and that's what I'm doing here. I take a long, nice and controlled breathe up and slowly start my descent, moving at an average speed of around 0.75 meters per second, sometimes even slower. The technique I'm using here is what we call an aguado technique, or a static ambush. What I'm doing is I'm using my left hand and my negative buoyancy to travel across the ocean floor, covering as much ground as I can while still maintaining a high level of efficiency, using as little oxygen as I can. As I'm doing this, I'm scanning up and down these long, beautiful strands of kelp, hopefully gonna run into a white sea bass. Unfortunately, no luck on this spot, no croaking, no bait, no signs of life.
My gun keeps getting stuck in the kelp.
The thermocline was sitting pretty low in the water column, resulting in some pretty terrible visibility. It was relatively close to shore, so we had some of that silt coming off, but it was so sea bassy.
Every time I took a dive, I would turn my head just waiting to see a giant sea bass coming in.
We hit the bottom and you look up and it's just a beautiful kind of canopy of kelp and backlit by the sunlight, and we were just cruising these little clearances in the kelp. It just looked so fishy.
It's super hard to tell when to stay and when to leave a spot, but we weren't seeing any bait. With 4 of us in the water and none of us had seen or heard anything, we decided to pick up anchor and head to the second spot of the day.
So the second spot of the day was a little high spot that came up to around 40 feet and dropped off to about 75 on the bottom. We had kelp coming up to that 40-foot mark, and it was beautiful. It's not quite like the kelp that you see in shallower. This kelp was super sparse, super spread out, kind of more like a stringy little pine forest. So I hit the bottom of my first drop at about 70 feet, and I look over and I see kind of the structure of the reef. I see some boulders and some kelp. All of a sudden those boulders started moving, and I was like, what the heck am I looking at? This thing came straight for me, a giant black sea bass. I don't know, 200, 300 pounds? It's kind of hard to figure out how much these things weigh, but what an incredible encounter. This thing like beelined it for me, kind of showed me its strength, turned broadside, and then gave me one kind of whip of the tail and was on its way. The water displacement made by this guy's fin was insane. I felt it rush over my arm, and the sound it made was like an alien bomb going off underwater or something. It was so weird and so crazy. But I surfaced and I looked at Grace and I was like, I need to go back down right now and pass me the camera.
I know he had seen something cool, but I had no idea what it was.
I just got her to hand me the camera and I went straight back down. This time the current had kind of pushed me up the ledge a little bit, so I dropped a little bit deeper and I hit the bottom, and the second I hit the bottom, I had like
6 sea bass come right into him.
6 or 7 of these things like come straight into me.
So here's what you need to know about giant black sea bass. They almost went extinct. In the mid-20th century, commercial fishing nearly wiped them out in California. And the same reason they were so vulnerable is the same reason that they let me sit next to it over and over. They're not afraid of people. They're kind of first responders. They're the first fish off the reef to eat. They're very curious, top predators. And unfortunately, the very thing that put them at the top of the food chain also nearly led to their demise.
These fish can live for over 75 years. They can grow to over 500 pounds, but they don't reproduce until they're relatively mature. which means when you remove the breeding population, recovery takes decades, not years. California fully protected them in 1982, and the recovery has been real, but relatively slow. Having said that, divers are seeing them more frequently now, especially around the islands, which is a genuine sign that 40 plus years of protection is working.
What I think people miss about spearfishing and conservation is that divers are the ones who actually see the recovery. We're the ones at the bottom of the ocean watching a black sea bass exist in a space where they're almost gone. We're the eyewitnesses to the fact that protection works, that when you leave something alone long enough, nature begins to recover. And seeing that in person, not in a documentary, but in person, at depth, on a breath hold, that changes how you think about every fish you choose to shoot and every fish you choose not.
This one of them came bolting towards me, kind of leveled out again. I was just face to face. This thing was eyeing me up, looking at me like I was dinner or something. It was so sick. He just kind of turned and looked at me, eyed me up and down, and me and him, we kind of had a moment down there. It was like, I'm just seeing this prehistoric animals existing naturally in their environment, and it was just a pretty unreal experience for me.
Even though we were all stoked on seeing these prehistoric looking fish, we didn't see any target species, and yet again, the bait was sparse. So we picked up the anchor and moved to our third spot of the day, and the most highly anticipated one yet. Another 10-mile run to an offshore bank. If you don't know what that is, it's a submerged ridge or plateau, sometimes miles from visible land, where the bottom comes up from deep water to create a structure that creates a large upwelling, concentrating bait to very specific regions on the structure. Yellowtail love these spots. They school up on the upcurrent side of the bank and pick off bait that get compressed against the ledge. The current here was strong, yet manageable. Normally on a bank like this, we'd keep a top man on the boat, setting a tack and just keep repeating the drift. Because the current was manageable, meaning you could swim to keep on the upcurrent side of the ledge, we decided to anchor and all jumped in. The name of the game here is to find the right bait, level out at a depth that you're comfortable at, and wait for an opportunity. We use this technique all over the world, hunting a large variety of species, and it's pretty rad to be able to do this at Grace's hometown. For the first few dives, nothing. The current was right, the bait was there, but no yellowtail on the column. Just blue and the specific frustration of knowing the fish should be there while wondering why they're not.
So, I found them.
Yeah, she found them, and so did everyone else.
I was on the west side of the bank and I saw a little flash of yellow at the edge of my visibility that instantly got me into hunt mode. I took a drop and looked to my right and saw 3 or 4 freaking massive ones, maybe in the mid 30-pound class, but they wanted nothing to do with me. As I was dropping, they gave me a little flick of their tail and were far out of range.
And you told me this while I was pulling off my 12th blank dive on the north side.
I mentioned it casually.
She surfaced and screamed, "Luka, there's a freaking massive one under me!" Unfortunately, I only found this out after the fact, as I couldn't hear anything, and my new 5mm smooth skin from Polo Sub, which, by the way, is keeping me nice and warm, a stark contrast from our last video.
A couple minutes later, Chase and I were at that same area I saw those big ones, and a school of just about 30 fish came in, took a drop. Chase took a drop at the same time as me on the same school of fish. I kind of was quartering away from them, hoping they would come in, give me a little bit of a better shot. And I just hear the trigger go, and I turn to my right, and Chase is on a fish.
I came up from a dive and was like messing around with my mask or something, and I turned to my right and I just see Chase's float going off like he just shot a big wahoo or something. Get the camera, baby. Get the camera. Yee-hoo! I lost my flasher. Oh no! Ripped out!
Luka came, swam over, float started flying down, but unfortunately, about 30 seconds later, the fish had ripped off. We were all so bummed, but super motivated because now we'd all seen them. We knew that they were in the area, so we were definitely in hunt mode after that.
We reset the drift and tried to get on these guys again.
"7 hours. I'd been in the water for 7 hours. My body was cooked. My feet were numb. I was super dehydrated, and I was finally starting to get cold in my new suit. I was getting pretty discouraged, with no one seeing fish now in over 2 hours. But Grace said something to me on the boat in between dives that I believed kept us going.
I wanted someone to land a fish so bad. We knew we were there, and I told Luka that now is the time. The tide is picking back up, the bait will return, and just to wait on the surface until everything lines up.
We hopped out of the water, waiting for the tide to pick up again. We hit slack and didn't see any fish for a while.
Luke had seen a lot, Chase had now seen fish, Grace had seen a bunch of fish, and I was just wondering what the heck was going on. Why was I not seeing fish? We waited for the tide to kind of pick up. We like to fish that like 40 to 50% of the tide window. As the tide started heating up, the current was back and the bait was back.
So we got up on the boat and then Luka and Chase hopped in.
On the 55th dive of the day, my first Yellowtail school. Grace and Luke were still getting in the water as they showed up, acting kind of like wahoo that just appear out of nowhere, smashing the bait and then retreating back down. Staying up in the column, that same school that came into Grace came into Chase and I. Chase saw them first and dove. Got a shot off, but missed. I chucked my throw flasher, hoping they would stick around, dropped on them, and took a shot. The shot was high. I knew it the second the shaft hit. A good shot on a yellow is just behind the gill plate, just barely quartering away at like a 25-degree angle. I hit it super high and back, which is definitely not ideal. The fish was alive and strong, and now it was in a fight for its life.
Terrible shot, dude. There were two crucial mistakes that I made on this dive, and one of them I made before even getting in the water. I think he's on the bottom. I think he's stuck. He's stuck on the bottom, I think. I'm just trying to feel it. It's deep, I think. Shit! It was a bit high. What's that? It's gonna be like 130. Yeah, it's deep, dude. I wasn't 100% confident on the topography of our spot. So from my understanding, this bank, or from my lack of understanding, this bank came up to around 40 feet and had a harsh drop off into hundreds of thousands of feet. So I was not worried at all about the fish hitting the bottom and getting rocked up. That was on the last thing on my mind. The first mistake, obviously, was the very poor shot placement. So I let this fish take out a bunch of line. I played it as gently as I could. I wasn't gonna give it any slack because then the shaft can kind of come undone, but I was keeping just the tiniest bit of tension on it. I wanted that line to be tight, but not tight enough to where it could rip out. So eventually the line went super taut, and my worst fear was realized. I knew before I even got my eyes on this thing that it had got itself rocked up. So the theory is that if the fish is moving and vibrating on that reel line, then he's probably still attached. And unfortunately, I wasn't feeling any of that vibration. The line was super, super taut, so I knew he was tangled. I ended up calling the rest of the crew over to try to see if they could dive down and try to get like a point of view on it. My heart rate was super elevated, so I was kind of cooked. But they couldn't make it down. It was deep. We didn't know how deep it was, but nobody was able to get a visual on it. So I ended up taking a long breathe up. Unfortunately, the current had picked up at this point, so I was trying to kick, stay on the spot. At this point, I'm freezing cold. I've been in the water for 7 hours. I'm tired. My heart rate's been elevated because I've been fighting this fish. I was so excited to shoot this fish, and now I gotta go to the bottom of the ocean and try to retrieve my first yellowtail. So I did my breathe up, everything's fine, and I start my descent. I'm now following this reel line down. It's super taut, so that's no problem. I'm following this reel line down, and I hit the bottom at around 115, 117 feet, and I see my line just completely in a massive mess.
I knew this drop was a deeper drop, so I made sure to do our safety procedure. I was counting, making sure they didn't get past a certain number, so I knew when to go down and help them service.
So when I got to the bottom, I could see that this fish had swam underneath the rock and around 3 times. I could see 3 shooting lines sitting on the top of the rock. Unfortunately, this fish they can kind of use the rock as leverage and really get weird angles and be able to rip themselves off. So unfortunately, this fish had ripped off my first yellowtail. The survival rate of these shot fish is actually pretty impressive. Like, with that kind of high and back shot, like that's just muscle there. These fish have a super high success rate after being shot. They heal pretty miraculously in the salt water. But still, regardless, a bummer, a hard way to end the day. Grace and I ended up diving, I think, like over 50 dives each, and unfortunately nothing to show for it.
On the last dive, our friend Luke ended up with a really nice calico, but we ended up going back to dock empty-handed once again. Okay, the sailing update. If you guys stuck around this long, thank you. This one's worth it.
So, I skippered a Hobie Cat.
Oh gosh. How long did you skipper for?
I skippered for 5 minutes, and then Tim took over. But anyway, I did learn a lot. Like, for those that don't know, a Hobie Cat is like a little catamaran. It's like 16 feet long. It's got like a kind of a trampoline running through the middle. Anyway, it's a great way to learn how to sail because every mess up gets exacerbated by like 100 times. It's really kind of delicate and fine-tuned because it's such a small vessel, and you need to kind of really understand wind angles and how to trim your sails correctly. But yeah, I was a skipper. I was kind of controlling it with a little tiller arm, learning how to stick into like little wind pockets to gain a little bit of speed, fall off. The next day, I then went back to our beer can races where I was sailing on that 50-foot monohull back to the grinder position. I busted up my shin. I almost fell off the boat. I was like, we were heeled over like 30 degrees, and the skipper was like, jibe. So everyone was rushing back to their stations, and I kind of like stumbled and tripped, and like my foot like went back into the water. The captain was just looking at me. He was like, what are you doing, dude? But anyway, we had tons of fun learning the trim, learning how to understand the telltales so I can kind of help my trimmer out, but having a blast.
So, where are we in the boat buying world?
We're closer. Not to the money. I mean, yes to the money. Slowly. Always. But closer to being the people who can sail the boat across an ocean.
3 months ago, I couldn't tell a halyard from a sheet. Now I've skippered a Hobie Cat, kind of, raced a 50-footer 4 times, and I understand VMG well enough to explain it badly to a camera.
And that's growth.
That's growth. And here's the thing that connects all of it. The Catalina dive, the lost Yellowtail, the Hobie shenanigans, the learning how to trim. Every single thing that we do right now is building the version of us that can captain a catamaran across the Pacific. The fishing teaches us the ocean. The sailing teaches us the boat. And the combination of those two things is what the channel is going to become when we finally push off the dock.
We're not sailors yet, but we're not sailors anymore either.
That's the update. We're somewhere in between, and we're moving in the right direction. You know what I keep thinking about?
The fish that dangled at the bottom of the ocean.
115 feet in current and 60-degree water is a long way down to save something you already know is gone. And we're doing that right now with the boat, with the channel, with all of it. We're diving deep for something we can't quite see yet. And some days, it feels like the line is wrapped around a rock and we're just pulling on wreckage. But I went down anyway, because that's what you do when the thing matters.
And sometimes the fish is still there.
Sometimes the fish is still there.
Catalina, we'll be back.
We're estimating our savings are around 25 to 30% of our final goal. If you guys want to buy a print, link is in the description as always. Every dollar goes to the boat fund. Thank you guys so much for watching, and hopefully we'll be back to the island soon, this time
Landing
with the
some fish. We have to come home with some fish. That hamachi is calling her name. There's like caviar at our grocery store, and I just want to buy that so bad to put on some sushi. For those that don't know, Grace makes the meanest sushi rice. We had sushi from one of Grace's giant ukus that we shot on the Big Island of Hawaii. If you haven't seen that video, go check it out. But enough rambling. Thank you Tropicali for the support. Thank you Alchemy, Polo Sub, and Orca Spear Guns. Thank you Pelagic for all your guys' help. And
Thank you guys.
thank you guys. We're the Dolmans, and we will see you on the next one. Thank you for watching.